Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this Ministerial Roundtable. My name is Lynette Neufeld. I'm the Director of the Food and Nutrition Division at FAO, and I'm very pleased to be here this afternoon. Excellencies, distinguished guests, colleagues, thank you for joining us in this Ministerial Roundtable, navigating transitions to inclusive, resilient, healthy, and sustainable food systems. I am very pleased to welcome the panel here today. And in the interest of our slightly tight timetable, I am going to introduce our panel members, and then we will walk through the session directly. So I'm very pleased to welcome Excellency Limber Cruz Lopez, Minister of Agriculture of the Dominican Republic, Her Excellency Amna bint Abdullah Al-Daka Al-Shamsi, Minister of Climate Change and Environment, the United Arab Emirates, His Excellency Mabouba Diagne, Minister of Agriculture, Food Sovereignty and Livestock of Senegal, the Honorable Ali Imam Majumdar, Advisor, Minister of Food and Minister of Land in Bangladesh, Mr. Marco Antonio Oviedo Cajas, Vice Minister for Development and Rural Innovation in Ecuador, and Ms. Ruth Davis, Special Representative for Nature from the United Kingdom. We are also pleased to welcome Ms. Aija Haidvu, Chief Corporate Affairs Officer from Tetra Pak, and Ms. Nancy Rapanto, the Africa leader from the World Wildlife Federation. We will be joined later in the session by Mr. Maximo Torero Cullen, Chief Economist of FAO. As you are all well aware, food systems contribute to multiple national goals. They are vital contributors to national economic well-being, economic growth, major sources of income for many people in both rural and urban areas in most countries globally. But as we have been hearing already this morning, food systems can and must enable access to and consumption of healthy diets for everyone all year round. They also play a critical role in supporting environmental goals and can be resilient to the climate and other threats that we are now experiencing across multiple regions of the world. But the inclusiveness, resilience, healthfulness, and sustainability of food systems does not happen spontaneously, nor is the achievement of these vital goals the sole responsibility of a single sector. Agriculture, trade, education, health, environment, and other sectors are implicated in achieving these aims, and actions are required from public and private sector continuously. This requires coherent policies across sectors and forward planning. In this roundtable, we look forward to hearing how data, evidence, policies, innovation, and collaboration have advanced the aims to deliver the right to adequate, healthy food for all, while supporting national economic development goals and mitigating climate and other challenges. We will hear first from countries on the challenges, progress, and opportunities. We will then be joined by Mr. Torero, who will provide a brief presentation on what is at stake, exploring the environmental, social, and health costs of food systems, and the opportunity presented by addressing these costs. We will then hear from our private sector and civil society partners on how they are supporting countries to achieve these critical aims. Finally, we will have a few moments for comments from the floor. Many have already pre-requested these comments, so I'm not sure whether we will have time for it, but I will certainly do my best for us to stay in the time. And I would ask our distinguished speakers to stay within the allotted time as well, so that we can move and hear from as many people as possible. Please note that we do have simultaneous translation in all UN languages, which you can access through the screens on each of the sets in front of you. We know there is much to say on this important topic, so without further ado, I would like to call on His Excellency, Mr. Limber Cruz Lopez. Si le gustaría pasar. And I'm going to ask the question in Spanish. two questions, both to Dominican Republic and to Ecuador in Spanish, if you would like simultaneous translation. Okay. La agricultura en los países islas en vías de desarrollo, incluyendo la República Dominicana, son altamente susceptibles a los eventos climáticos. En ocasiones, esto aumenta la dependencia en el comercio internacional para los alimentos. ¿Nos podría comentar, por favor, sobre las políticas que la República Dominicana está implementando para atender estas amenazas, considerando la relación entre los diversos desenlaces económicos, ambientales, sociales y salud? Gracias.
Muchas gracias. Soy Limber Cruz, desde la República Dominicana. Quiero primero introducir palabras diciendo que la República Dominicana es uno de los 10 países más vulnerables de todo el mundo. Todos los fenómenos nos impactan. Comenzamos esta gestión en medio de la pandemia del COVID, pero inmediatamente después las inclemencias del tiempo nos han golpeado fuertemente. Por eso hemos tenido que tomar políticas prácticas y rápidas, porque con la frecuencia y la velocidad que llegan los fenómenos a nuestro país, tenemos que ser bastante resilientes. En ese sentido, lo primero que hemos decidido es producir, pero producir de manera diferente. Cuando digo de manera diferente, es producir con más productividad, con más eficiencia, de una manera que llegue al público. Y para darle apoyo a esa producción y a esa productividad, obviamente tomamos políticas de remozar todas las infraestructuras del campo dominicano. Empezamos resolviendo los problemas más pequeños, más prácticos, más rápidos, como son los reservorios, como son las lagunas, pequeñas lagunas, el riego presurizado, también paneles solares para la producción de energía y que el campesino tenga acceso a esas tecnologías. Drones, es muy importante el dron. Hemos distribuido drones en todas las regionales del país para que los pequeños tengan acceso a fumigar con esos aparatos que pueden detectar incluso la humedad del terreno. Y son sensores, tienen sus sensores para aplicar la fertilización que le corresponde a cada terreno. También hemos cambiado la forma del extensionismo. Cuando enviamos un técnico a ayudar a un productor, ya no solamente lo enviamos para que le diga cómo producir, sino también de qué manera producir más, con más eficiencia, con más rapidez y sobre todo más barato. Son medidas que hemos tomado para que el productor pequeño tenga la posibilidad de ir siendo resiliente a estos cambios climáticos. Importante ha sido para nosotros el financiamiento. Financiamiento, elegimos 3 categorías de financiamiento. Una categoría con una tasa bastante competitiva de un 8%, otra más bajita de un 6% y una de 0 para los productores pequeños en el campo dominicano. Y a eso también le agregamos lo que se llaman nuestros bonos de contingencia, porque muchas veces el pequeño productor no tiene acceso al crédito, como todos ustedes saben. Sin embargo, el gobierno tiene un subsidio dirigido para cuando hay ese tipo de fenómenos que impactan al pequeño productor. Y obviamente estamos fortaleciendo el seguro agropecuario. Finalmente, quiero también decirle que hemos fomentado poderosamente lo que se llama la agricultura de contrato. La agricultura de contrato le permite saber qué producir, para quién producir y a qué precio producir. Y eso ha dado muchos resultados en la República Dominicana. Quien les habla es un productor y ha producido en los dos sistemas, para el mercado y también por de contrato. Y los beneficios de la agricultura de contrato son bastante amplios con relación a tú solamente producir para el mercado. Yo le puedo garantizar a ustedes que si no pensamos en esos fomentos, en esa ayuda para el campesino dominicano, no van a tener la rentabilidad, y sin rentabilidad se para el crecimiento y se detiene el desarrollo en nuestro campo dominicano. Finalmente, y con esto concluyo, como estamos en un foro combinado con el medio ambiente, quiero decirles que hemos fortalecido el cuidado a nuestro café y a nuestro cacao, tanto en los llanos como en las montañas. Pero seguimos sembrando muchos árboles que captan el CO2, como es la castaña de masa, como es la macadamia, y otros árboles frutales que son captadores del CO2 y también tienen doble propósito porque producen alimento. Si lo hacemos así, obviamente que seremos mucho más resilientes para que nuestros campos sigan creciendo y desarrollándose, sobre todo en los países que somos más vulnerables. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias. Thank you very much. It's very interesting and important to hear about practical and rapid solutions for efficient production, the importance of affordability of food, and the critical importance of financing for smallholder farmers and as the backbone of the food system in a country like the Dominican Republic. With that, I would like to move to the United Arab Emirates. Excellency, if you would like to join us at the podium. Welcome. So the UAE has consistently demonstrated leadership in driving sustainable agriculture and resilient food systems. Given the UAE's unique environmental context with limited water and land resources, could you elaborate on the strategic vision and innovative approaches that underpin your nation's strong focus on strengthening local food production? Thank you.
Good afternoon first, and good afternoon to everyone here, colleagues, esteemed delegates. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting us to be part of telling the story of agriculture in the UAE. Throughout the sustainable development sector, we always have believed since the inception of the country that the challenges will always yield opportunities, and opportunities will yield innovation. And with innovation, we'll see impact. And that will definitely result in prosperity for the country and for the world. The challenges that faces the UAE since the very beginning of the work in the agricultural sector is due to its geographical location, from the fact that we have limited arable lands to the high temperature to scarcity of water resources. These are all challenges that have been and still are there. But we've looked at these as opportunities to develop sustainable agricultural practices from the very beginning and design resilient food systems. And this all stems from the vision of our founding father, Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan. Through the past 5+ decades, we've worked hard based on that vision to build a productive, resilient, and sustainable food ecosystem. And with that comes the design of different strategies and policies that contribute to that, from the National Food Security Strategy 2051, which targets having the UAE as one of the top 10 global food security leaders, focusing on innovation and collaboration. And because we need to focus on sustainable agriculture, we cannot have the strategies isolated from other strategies like the Net Zero Strategy 2050, which is an ambitious framework, including the agricultural sector, as well as other sectors that impact or get impacted by the agricultural sector. And because of the nature of the water scarcity in the UAE, we've also combined with that the Water Security Strategy 2036, which is focused on reducing water consumption and demand by 2036. Meaning that more produce does not necessarily have to mean more usage of water resources. We can be efficient and sustainable both ways. And because the UAE is always focused on action domestically and internationally, we've witnessed during the UAE hosting of COP28 how the UAE have rallied 160 nations to join in the UAE Declaration on Sustainable Agriculture, Resilient Food Systems, and Climate Action. And we've aligned food and agriculture with climate goals, as well as this summit is focused on the same. COP28 also mobilized around $2.5 billion for food security while combating climate change. And in partnership with the Gates Foundation, we've also invested an additional $200 million in agricultural innovation. Now, zooming in again domestically, we've expanded many of the sustainable and innovative agricultural practices, from vertical farming in all of its formats, pioneering hydroponics, and always looking at equipping our farmers with technologically sophisticated solutions to ensure that we also contribute to reducing the carbon footprint. Because we're focused on innovations, we're looking at increasing the local produce and reducing our reliance on imports. And that also contributes to solidifying our resilience when it comes to our supply chains versus the climate shocks that we have been seeing affecting the food systems everywhere and around the world. We've mentioned that all the opportunities also yield innovation, and we are looking at prioritizing innovation through the system. And we know for a fact that we cannot make the disruptive leaps we're looking for if we're not focused on research and development and also focused on nurturing startups in that space. The Abu Dhabi Investment Office has created an incentive program to accelerate the growth of agri-tech ecosystem and promote innovation in agriculture. And within that program, companies receive financial and non-financial incentives totaling to around $41 million. Now, we need to focus on the entire value chain, and that means that we need also to focus on reducing food loss and waste with impactful awareness campaigns, strategic policies and incentives, and technological solutions. And we're working diligently to minimize waste from farm to consumption. We have a flagship initiative around the country. Ni'ma is a nationwide is designed to cut food waste and loss by 50% by 2030. This exemplifies the comprehensive system-wide approach that we're looking for, and also translate the vision of the UAE being an open innovation lab that always welcomes international collaboration and look at exchanging and sharing knowledge and practices. Because we believe that engaging in global platforms like this summit will always contribute to collective action, much more impactful progress, and partnership is always key in designing climate resilient food solutions and build capacity collectively around the globe. Last May, we've had in the UAE Emirates Agricultural Exhibition and Conference, which included all stakeholders related to the sector, from farmers, private sectors, policymakers, investors, researchers, students, and even the students from schools, not only from universities, to prepare them to engage in this sector and to make sure that we're always building the capacity going forward and to boost the exchange of ideas and partnerships. We focus throughout this exhibition and conference on promoting sustainable farming, but also promoting local produce and creating more ventures for increasing the focus on local produce and its contribution to the national food security. To conclude, I would like to emphasize again that the UAE's journey across all of the development sectors have focused on our ability on transforming those challenges into opportunities. And we know that integrating climate action with food systems will yield national security and will contribute to better, prosperous world for everyone. We believe that inclusive, resilient, and sustainable food systems can only be designed if we design them together and translate them into action with collective ambition, decisive and impactful action and implementation plans, because the future of food security and our planet depends on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And it was very interesting to hear the focus on opportunities yielding innovation and the examples that you've shown us on how the various policies align to that perspective, including investments, including both domestically and internationally, with an excellent example of the COP28 declaration. So I would now like to move to Senegal. If you would be so kind, Excellency, to move to the podium. As mentioned in my opening remarks, and indeed the title of this session, we are placing a high expectations on transformation of food systems to deliver those that are inclusive, resilient, healthy, and sustainable. Please tell us how Senegal is approaching food systems transformation towards these multiple objectives.
First of all, allow me to thank the Ethiopian government and the United Nations who organized this session. You know, Senegal is a relatively small country, 18 million people, 46 regional districts, is importing close to $1.6 billion to feed its people. It has been going for more than 20, 25 years. Since the new leadership came, they said, we need to change. And what has changed? We used to rely solely to cultivate. And we have said, the new president, Excellency President Diomaye Diakhar Faye, and the Prime Minister has said that the very first thing that we need to bring to the small-scale farmers is water. Without water, we cannot cultivate anything. After bringing water through the organizations of what they call cooperative agricole communautaire, and I will explain what does it mean, we need to bring seed. And more, we need to develop what we call the FISIP, very similar to the Zambian government has done, the Farmers Input Supply Program. The last 2 years, we spent close to $270 million. Last year, we organize the farmers by giving them certified fertilizer. And now, with the help of the World Bank, we are organizing the digitalization of the distribution of these inputs. We strongly do believe that technology can help to leapfrog food sovereignty. We have a strategy called the 3FTC. We need to train the farmers, formation. We need to formalize the farmers through cooperative agricole communautaire. We need to bring blended finance to the farmers by bringing government subsidy, concessional loan, green financing, in order to be able to push the farmers to be what I call the double P strategy: productivity and profitability. In order for the small-scale farmer to be productive, achieving relatively good yield on his land, we need to train him, we need to leverage technology, we need to give sufficient seed, but we need also to do what I will call the soil. We often forget that after water, after seed, the most important thing is the soil. And we are currently doing what we call amendement organic, which means that we are using the agricultural waste of all the abattoirs, all of the agricultural waste in order to produce organic fertilizer. And this organic fertilizer is fed back into the soil in order to rebuild the soil. The fourth expensive input is electricity. We are embarking, the president is embarking into what we call a green agri strategy, where we would like to put solar, where we would like to put biogas, biodigester, into all the in most farms in order to reduce the operational costs of the productions of goods. Now, government cannot do it alone. If you see importing $1.6 billion every year, produced mainly by small-scale farmers, we need to get the private sector into the game. Reason why we are also building public-private partnership to be the accelerator. And we used to say, small-scale farmers feed the people, and the agribusiness, accelerate the transformation. We cannot, according to our strategy, we cannot achieve food sufficiency if we are not upskilling, upbringing, financing, formalizing the small-scale farmer, and using the agribusiness in order to accelerate. And now, we cannot do it alone also. We recently went to Brazil to do a South-South collaboration. We went to China. We recently come from Italy. We are also talking to the US. We are also talking to South Africa to tell you that we strongly do believe that. And also we are watching wonderful work that Ethiopia has done on the wheat, because we are importing 1.4 million metric tons of rice, 806,000 metric tons of wheat, 450,000 metric tons of maize. Basically, we are also doing some knowledge sharing from here and there whenever we believe that we have climates that are similar, challenges that are similar. This is basically what our new government is doing to basically, produce a very inclusive, let's say, strategy for food sovereignty. Thank you.
Very precise on the timing and also very precise on telling us about the coherence of policies to overcome the reliance on imported foods and the coherence across the many actions related to imports, inputs, electricity, and so forth. Really quite a fascinating story for us to continue to watch. I would now like, well, if I can make my my technology work here. We now pass to Ecuador. Pasamos al Ecuador. Ay, perdón, I'm sorry. Before we move to Ecuador, if we may move to Bangladesh. And Your Excellency, it is your choice whether you would like to move to the podium or stay where you are. It's also very fine to answer, respond from your seat there. So, Honorable Minister, the importance of policy coherence has been on the political agenda for some time in Bangladesh. Can you please tell us how Bangladesh is using food systems transformation agenda to advance across multiple economic, social, environmental things? Over to you.
Good afternoon to you all. Thank you very much for asking me a vital question. First of all, I'd like to inform this gathering that my country has a land area of only 55,000 square miles, and we have 180 million population. With this immense challenge, we are trying to mitigate our food system as asked here. Just like economic, social, environment, and health domains. In economic domains, enhancing agri-food value chain, modernization and diversification of agriculture, agribusiness, agro-processing, and value addition, increase farmer incomes. In investment and trade facilitations, market access, public-private partnership, and investment in rural infrastructure. SME empowerment, small and medium enterprises, food entrepreneurships. Regarding social domain, our concentration is nutrition-sensitive social protection like FFP, VWB, rice fortification in FFP, and VWB school meal. Gender and youth inclusion, empowering youth and women in agriculture. Education and behavior change, nutrition, education, dietary diversity campaigns. Environmental domain, climate smart agriculture, stress tolerant crop varieties, integrated farming, sustainable resource management, land, water, soil, food loss and waste reduction, post-harvest loss, food waste in retail and consumer level. In health domain, we are addressing malnutrition, undernutrition, micronutrient deficiencies, overweight, obesity, and non-communicable diseases. Improve dietary quality, national food-based dietary guidelines, food safety reforms. Food Safety Act 2013 and its rules and regulations, Bangladesh Food Safety Authority is functioning under the Ministry of Food. Gradually, it is spreading its arms. Though initially, its domain is very limited, as because many agencies are working regarding the food safety. We get all the agencies under the umbrella of Food Safety Authority, and we hope we will be successful soon. And foodborne disease, address foodborne diseases in manifold. Moreover, I'd like to mention here additionally that our main challenges is ever decreasing farming land for urbanization, for infrastructure, for housing, for industries, and for some other purposes. Moreover, salination is a very important point. Yeah. I think Bangladesh is facing multifarious challenges. In spite of that, we are trying to gradually increase our food production. Moreover, the major food, the rice. And it is a matter of relief for all of us that we are nearer to self-sufficient in respect of rice production. But in respect of wheat, we are lagging much behind. And we have to depend on import. I think if I like to tell a story about our country, many of you will not believe many things that in such a small country, how so many people are living, so far I believe, they're having their meals, and more or less, it's safe meals. And thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you for those words. I think you have demonstrated us the very real challenges that countries face now through the growing population, through the climate challenges and so forth, and many of the actions that Bangladesh has undertaken, including work across the value chain, from enhancing production, public-private partnerships, infrastructure in rural areas, food loss and waste and so forth, that are desperately and needed to ensure that the country can continue to confront those challenges. Now I would like to pass to Ecuador. If you, Excellencia, podría tomar aquí el podio. I will again read the question in Spanish. Aunque los contextos son muy distintos, Ecuador enfrenta también los espacio físico limitado, efectos climáticos y otros retos a la resiliencia de los sistemas alimentarios. ¿Nos puede comentar, por favor, algunas de las acciones que el Ecuador está implementando hacia una transformación del sistema alimentario inclusiva, resiliente, saludable y sostenible?
Sí. Muchas gracias. Buenas tardes a todos en nombre de nuestro país. Es para nosotros muy grato estar acá y compartir lo que hemos logrado hacer. Y también venimos con el interés de aprender, de buscar complementariedad. Creo que debo empezar diciendo que nuestro país, como se sabe, ha tenido momentos políticos que al final del día han causado confusión en lo que se tiene que hacer desde la política pública, desde el accionar del sector público. Entonces, entre las prioridades que hemos identificado para actuar, están justamente marcar la cancha para que esta administración y futuras administraciones puedan realmente continuar la senda de desarrollo que necesitan nuestros pueblos. Y aquí quisiera mencionar que uno de los elementos que resume el interés como país es lograr el bienestar rural. Ese es el objetivo, el bienestar rural, que tiene, por supuesto, dos elementos complementarios bajo este gran paraguas, que es tomar en cuenta a los pequeños y medianos productores con inclusión social. Ese bienestar se logra con esta articulación. Y así podríamos entonces comentar que es la orientación general, pero en la de lo que hay que hacer, hemos propuesto citar dos políticas que buscan justamente transformar el pensamiento, la visión política en acciones. Y esa es la política agropecuaria que tiene 10 años de visión, empezando este año, y la política intersectorial agropecuaria para la mujer rural. En el caso del tema de la política agropecuaria, la intención entonces es que a través de un proceso que hemos ejecutado a nivel de territorio, para que desde la visión estratégica de nuestra administración, pero modulado con lo que realmente necesita el sector, se transforme en un producto tangible. Y es así que ahora mismo estamos ya en el paso final de este proceso para que sea por decreto presidencial la política agropecuaria 2025-2034. 10 ejes de trabajo, todos son importantes, 10 ejes. Pero hemos priorizado 3 de ellos con el ánimo de poder acelerar esto que hemos llamado bienestar rural. Y en esta visión de todos estos 10 componentes, reitero, todos son tomados en acción y más bien 7 van a servir a los 3 que voy a mencionar, que son el mercado o la comercialización, la productividad, el acceso al financiamiento y al seguro agrícola. Para resumir en esta parte, pero quisiera enfocar mi intervención en lo que creo que es importante y es un transversal en todas las acciones que ejecuta nuestro gobierno, que es el reconocimiento a la mujer, el reconocimiento a esa acción que hace, pero también a nivel del campo. Y ahí quiero citar lo que había indicado, es la política sectorial agropecuaria para mujer rural. Nosotros decimos PAMUR. Y esta política tiene ejes generales que se los voy a mencionar. El primero, buscar un anclaje institucional y la planificación intersectorial. Recuerden el título, política intersectorial. Entonces, el anclaje institucional y la planificación multisectorial. El otro eje es programas claves y acciones multisectoriales para transformar la política en acción. Y dos elementos más, que es la inclusión social, las alianzas y la territorialización, es decir, llevar al territorio las acciones que estamos diseñando. Y por último, el financiamiento y la sostenibilidad de esta política. Entonces, estos son los que están motivando, que están haciéndose para la ejecución de la política intersectorial agropecuaria para mujeres rurales. Y tal vez para mencionar algunos elementos que pueda clarificar un poco más los ejes, me gustaría mencionarles que en el anclaje institucional y la planificación multisectorial, por ejemplo, el Ministerio de Agricultura lo que ha hecho es llevar a su interiorización a través de la Subsecretaría de Agricultura Familiar Campesina esta política de apoyo a la mujer rural. Otro elemento de este eje es la gobernanza intersectorial. Aquí nos referimos a que entra en acción en una mesa de trabajo donde se coordina ministerios, gobiernos locales, la cooperación, la academia y, por supuesto, la... Y por último, en el territorio, con el ánimo de buscar este anclaje, hemos creado los consejos cantonales de seguridad alimentaria y nutricional. Esta acción de bajar al territorio lo que busca es que efectivamente pudiéramos tener una acción clara, decidida para poder implementar esta política. ¿Cómo estamos con el tiempo? Bueno, hay mucho más para hablar. Si el tema les interesa, podríamos conversar más adelante. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias. You've highlighted very many themes that we've heard. The importance of rural well-being is fundamental for the productive sector to maintain productivity, insurance, all being critical, as well as the importance of translating policy into action, social inclusion, all supported by constructive and coordinated governance. So very grateful for those interesting and important additions to the conversation today. I would now like to move to the United Kingdom. Ms. Davis, you are the first special representative for nature in the United Kingdom, a role that focuses both on actions in the UK and in support of nature-positive actions in your international collaboration. Within this portfolio, please tell us about the key entry points that you see with the transformation of food systems, both at home and abroad.
Thank you so much. I'd just like to say thank you to our hosts and hello to all the distinguished delegates. I am indeed the first person to hold the role of the Special Representative of Nature for the United Kingdom. We've had a climate special representative for some time, but this is a new role. And I work directly to both our Foreign Secretary, but also in the United Kingdom to our Agriculture and Environment Ministers, who hold the same portfolio. And I think that's an important starting point for us, because the reason that my role exists is a recognition that nature, by which I mean not just biodiversity, but natural systems like forests and wetlands, and also natural resources like water and soil, underpin the productive economy of the world. And they underpin also productive, inclusive food systems which work for people. So that is the starting point for the existence of my role. But I think it's really important that I'm very serious when I'm talking to colleagues and friends who are working on food systems quite often in extremely challenging circumstances, that we recognize that what that means is finding ways to invest in the synergies between the agenda for food systems transformation for people and for nature, but also be sensible and be open and wise about conversations around trade-offs. This needs to be a very evidence-based and supported conversation. And so I think I would like to say that one of the most important things about thinking about the relationship between nature and food systems is to be very concrete about the evidence base that we're talking about. Not work on slogans, not talk in generalities, be clear about what this might actually mean to support people and their livelihoods in the places that we work. So, for example, we have a partnership where we work in the United Kingdom with colleagues and friends from governments in the Congo Basin region, I think some of whom are probably present today. And we work with them in recognition that in the region, around 75 to 85% of the rainfall that falls on that region is generated directly through the role of the Congo Basin forests. And as far as here in Ethiopia, around 40 to 50% of the rainfall falling on the highlands in Ethiopia has its origin in the forests of the Congo Basin. And we need to be really specific about why this matters for people if we want to be able to build the synergies between the food systems agenda and the nature agenda. I'll give you a couple more examples. We work in the United Kingdom on trying to increase the investment that we make in nature-based solutions to help us and our land, our farmers, and our food production from the impacts of floods and droughts. Where I live in the United Kingdom last year, a large part of the most productive agricultural land in the country was underwater for 6 months. And as a result, we had one of the lowest productive agricultural years that we've had for a long time. Nature and nature-based solutions can play a really important part in protecting productive agriculture from those challenges. We also think that we should be drawing on the evidence base around healthy soils. And it was really encouraging and interesting to hear from ministers and colleagues about the investments they're making in soil to help increase the productivity of their farming systems. It's also really vital, I think, that we're very clear about the need to call on farmer-driven, locally led, often traditionally informed sources of knowledge, but to do so in a way that also the role of modern technology as an absolutely critical, important pathway for many to improve the productivity and profitability of their food systems. So I think we have a challenge together to work out what a nature-based and nature-aligned food system would look like that is also using the very best of modern technology to support the direction of travel. That means that we have a genuinely integrated approach to these problems. I want to, before I close, mention 3 priorities for the United Kingdom that are important to us and where I think we'd like to work in partnership with others. The first is around the domestic efforts that we're making to reform the subsidy regime that we have in the United Kingdom. It's a complex process to begin to set out to reform subsidies in a way that's going to make your food system more resilient, more productive, but also more nature friendly. We're working along that line, but it's difficult, and we know we need to bring farmers in a key partner in being able to work through that. If others are working on this agenda, this is where we would like to partner with them. The second thing is that I think we all recognize the need for more coherence across the international system. It's very difficult to work in a situation where you're dealing with targets on climate, on biodiversity, on water, and on food, all of which intersect, but all of which are sometimes contradictory, and with international institutions that don't speak to each other about the same agenda. And then the final thing is the really big challenge that we all face, which is that we really want to see the food system, as a productive, inclusive part of our economy in which the private sector can invest with confidence, but we have a big gap to get to that point. So we are asking ourselves, what can we do to use all the tools we have, all the partnerships we have, to now enable and de-risk private sector investment to come into the kinds of food systems friends and colleagues and ministers were describing earlier. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Very interesting to hear about the nature-based and aligned policies and strategies that the UK is working towards. And again, we've heard much about the trade-offs and the importance that nature underpins our food systems and the actions that we need to ensure that potential is realized. I'm now pleased to invite FAO's Chief Economist, Mr. Maximo Torero to provide us with a few remarks. Welcome.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Lynette, for providing me the time to just give brief remarks. I have been being reported on everything that the countries have been presenting through the importance of resilience, the importance of what we are going to be facing in terms of climate shocks, the importance of coordination of policies. And here is, and I will, can you put the slide? Okay, so we don't have too much time. So let me just focus on some key messages which I think are important. First, we know that we will be facing interconnected crises. Don't put the slides, it's okay. We know that we are facing interconnected crises that will be linked to frequency and intensity of climate events. We know that we have a significant level of food loss and waste today. We know that there is gender and youth exclusion. We know that there is lack of access to financing today. We know that we have to face the triple burden of malnutrition. And we know that we have to look at financing gaps and then underinvestment. Now, what that means? It means that we need to find ways in which we can effectively try to close those gaps, and bringing the system approach could allow us to do that. Why this is so important? Because every year we will need around $1.1 trillion per year for climate resilient transformation, just to do this resilience that Dominican Republic was referring. We also need 28.5 billion a year to invest in the agri-food system so that we can create the yields and the productivity, the innovation that UAE was mentioned in territories which don't have access to water, for example. How we can improve the efficiency of the use of resources. We need to find ways in which we can attract climate financing to the agri-food system, which today is around 4%. And if we look at the smallholders, it's 0.8%. So we need to find ways that we can make this attractive for the agri-food system. And also we need to have more coordination, as Bangladesh was mentioning, in our policy so that we can move forward. But clearly, that requires that the system approach that looks not only at what we do specifically in the agri-food systems, which is production of food, but also non-food agricultural products, to health, because of nutrition, is interlinked to infrastructure, to logistics, to energy access, and to many other sectors, and to the environment, of course, because these agri-food systems creates externalities, as we all know. It provides one of the most important things that we have, but it also will create externalities by emissions. 30% of the emissions come from the agri-food system to affect our biodiversity, the use of the water and the land. So we need to try to tackle those root causes, and we need to find a way to create a system transformation that interlinks all these issues. This morning in the opening, it was very clear by what the presidents were presenting, starting from Ethiopia to Kenya and to other country experiences, on how they are looking at this together. And this is where we need to change our mindset, and we need to find a way to work in a strategic level. How we can create this transformation in which we have a systems thinking, which means recognize interconnection, not isolated problems, things relationally across sectors, outcomes and timeframes. How we can look at the trade-offs, that every action that we do could have a trade-off, and how we can minimize those trade-offs. We need to identify strategic entry and leverage points where targeted actions can trigger broader lasting change. Assessments such as the true cost accounting, which help us to understand those externalities. Externalities on the environment, externalities which are social because of employment, and externalities which are related to our health because of nutrition. And that's the importance of access to healthy diets. We want to minimize non-communicable diseases. But here we're thinking on policies which have to be also consistent over time, because those externalities are not necessarily today, they are tomorrow. And we need to minimize those so that tomorrow we also have the right to food. And finally, we need to do mapping exercises to be able to assure the coordination of policies so that we work together in policies that come as a package and not individually related, which is what we want to avoid. So in this context, the power of complementarity policies will be central. And what means this policy bundling? It means combining complementarity policy instruments to address multiple goals. Just by definition, we are looking at the right to food, more production, more productivity, efficiently, but also assuring sustainability, less emissions, so that we can achieve and don't breach the 1.5 degrees. Why is so important? Because it promotes coherence across sectors and levels. It reduces duplication, gaps, and conflicting incentives. It increases efficiency and returns on investments. It supports longer-term systems outcomes rather than isolated wins. And it supports the system approach that will link health, environment, livelihoods, equity goals, and help to manage these trade-offs that we need to find ways to minimize them. And it allows also to sequence what we do. And the sequencing, because of the intertemporal issue, will be central. There are policies that will be for today, policies that will be for the medium term, and policies that will be for long-term interventions. So essentially, I think, and as a result of this panel, what we are aiming here is how we can accelerate the process of adapting this system approach, given the importance it has. It has a great output as a result of it. We achieve multiple goals and we minimize those trade-offs. How we can use this also to increase our resilience and risk management. Because if we have one certainty in the next 10 years, no matter what we do, is that the frequency and intensity of climate events will be increasing. How we can use our policy instruments in a coherent way so that we can create the proper incentives and finance. And here is where the agenda of repurposing, of the support of agriculture, that's why it's so important to have the enabling environment and macroeconomic policies that will assure also more financing coming to the countries will be essential. We cannot have a Ministry of Agriculture isolated of the Ministry of Finance, isolated of the Ministry of Health. We need to interrelate them. And we also need to have an inclusive governance to engage stakeholders early and transparency in terms of information so that we can build trust and accountability and recognize and respond to local context and national realities. And finally, leverage global platforms and coordination. Support multi-stakeholder action through the CFS, the UN Food System Summit, and the Global Alliance that was brought in the G20 of Brazil that brings the policy basket, the coordination of financing, and the action at the country level. And finally, we must promote, and that's part of the job of our agencies, coherent, evidence-based policy development and financing so that we can help achieve these multiple goals through a proper analysis of the food system and the trade-offs. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I suspect you had a very rapid study of all of the many comments that we've been hearing to be able to incorporate so many of the lessons that we learned from our country panelists as you were joining us today. We've heard a lot about the interconnected crises, the costs of inaction, but the enormous opportunity that we have for action. And we've also heard about the important role of stakeholders and partners. So to conclude this segment of the panel, I would like to call on two, one right after the other, if you don't mind, and if you would please speak from here to save a few moments. We really are going to be under a bit of a time crunch. I would like to hear first from you, from Tetra Pak. Can you please, so Tetra Pak has placed particular emphasis on reducing food loss and waste as an entry point for more sustainable and resilient food systems. We heard a lot about food loss and waste in this panel. That the approach can favor livelihoods and healthy diets. Please tell us a bit about this work and how they can support national efforts towards common goals of food systems. 3 minutes, please.
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you so much for the invitation and the opportunity to represent the private sector in this panel with these very honorable speakers and of course, amazing audience. So I just quickly explain who we are as Tetra Pak, because we are a business-to-business company. So not all of you have seen us in the middle of the food systems, where we actually kind of are the engine behind in much of the food manufacturing and packaging that happens in the especially the perishable food sector. So we are one of the world's largest food manufacturing technology and packaging companies. And of course, with this role, with hundreds of thousands of our processing units out there, and last year it was 178 billion of our packages being distributed. We have a lot of responsibility in developing solutions which drive food system transformation. We've been working on this as a sustainability area, but it is really our core business. And when it comes to food waste and loss, there are basically two areas where we work. And of course, when we look into food manufacturing, which is very much, you take the ingredients from the farm, you create recipes, you start manufacturing and all that. It really boils down to the design of what you manufacture. And I think somebody mentioned here already, so we have product development centers for our customers where we try to optimize the use of ingredients, the local sourcing, regenerative ingredients, and also the nutritional capacity of the produce that are being made. Then, of course, it is the optimization of the ingredients. So if you, for instance, use raw milk, you use oils, you have to actually maximize the outputs from individual ingredients. And then it's the manufacturing efficiencies where you can decarbonize, you can leverage the side streams to additional, you can valorize waste, you can do many things. So food loss and waste in the manufacturing sector is a huge opportunity already. There is a big CO2 footprint in this area. So we very much welcome policies that incentivize this kind of work. And EU is a good example. Packaging is another one where technology really drives change. And we have particular technologies which are, it's called aseptic packaging, which allows for a longer shelf life, reduces the need of cold chains. So I think it's my call for action in this reduced time would really be to not only look at, of course, the farm and farmers, they are the foundation of the food systems, but also remember the SMEs and the middle part of the food, the change that can be driven by healthy diets, new recipes, by new types of manufacturing, new foods, and reduction of food loss and waste through packaging and solutions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We would like to hear now very quickly, and I'm sorry to rush a little bit, we have several countries who, so from the WWF, in your food systems transformation strategy emphasizes the importance of linking global and community level actions as part of a systemic transformation. Please tell us in just a few moments about how you achieve this approach by being inclusive of communities, highlighting the challenges of opportunities of working this way at scale.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon, Your Excellencies and fellow actors in the food transformation journey. My name is Nancy Rapando. I work at WWF as the Food Systems Lead. Allow me to share our WWF approach on food system transformation that ensures that communities are well integrated in what we are doing. But our goal is clear that by 2030, we must enable just transition that significantly increases nature positive practices, while these are practices that ensure we produce food while securing livelihoods and protecting. So our strategy is based on what we call the 4 Ps. We have our planet pathway. This pathway mostly aims at aligning food system transformation policies within planetary boundaries. We all know that we have the challenge of food, climate, and biodiversity all intertwined together. But what we are doing as an institution is that we are working within the Rio Conventions to ensure they address issues of food system transformation. But also another thing is that we've been part of key platforms like the Kampala Declaration and also national and subnational, ensuring that issues of food systems are at the center of environmental action. As WWF and other CSOs, our role as we advance these policies is to ensure that these policies are inclusive and are shaped by the voices of the smallholder farmers, indigenous people, and local communities who are heavily affected by the impacts of climate change and biodiversity loss. The other P is on the places. Under the places, we aim at protecting and restoring food producing landscapes. As WWF, we work within marginalized areas where some of the agriculture actors are not able to reach because some of those areas are not considered as high productive areas. But what we are doing is that we are ensuring that these landscapes use tools like land use planning and conservation zoning so that production of food does not degrade the landscape. So we advance practices like agroecology, that are able to regenerate ecosystems and ensure that our soils continue being healthy. Our people's pathway also ensures that we put people at the center of development and we ensure that there is meaningful participation. We adopt right-based approaches that recognize diverse food cultures we also acknowledge the role of indigenous food systems, the wild food systems, and also key nutritional needs for children. The fourth pillar on prosperity actually underscores the fact that food systems must build livelihoods and also resilience, and that they must also be economically viable. That means the need to understand the true cost of food, including environmental and social externalities, and aligning finance flows to support nature positive pathways. Going forward, as we talk about just transition, that communities and especially smallholder farmers should not be the only ones to bear the burden of the food system transformation. We must share the benefits and trade-offs fairly, ensuring equity in both risks and opportunities. We need also to support food sovereignty as we work with communities to ensure traditional knowledge and knowledge co-creation is done and that communities be sure. We also acknowledge the much work that is being done on establishment of multi-stakeholder platforms.
Thank
but for
you.
us as WWF, we want to ensure that they are grounded on local systems and communities heavily participate. Thank you so much. As we go ahead.
Thank you so much, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but we need to keep moving. Okay, if we may now pass to some comments from the floor, and I please try to keep your comments, if you can, to even less than 2 minutes, and not much more as possible. I would like to call first on Morocco. Morocco.
Merci. On avait dit 3 minutes, mais vous, puisque vous dites 2 minutes, on va essayer d'être à 2 minutes. Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, nous sommes réunis à un moment charnière dans un contexte mondial marqué par la crise climatique, économique et géopolitique. Ces défis accentuent les vulnérabilités de nos agricultures et creusent les inégalités. Il ne s'agit plus de débattre de la nécessité de transformer nos systèmes alimentaires, mais bien de la manière d'y parvenir avec justice, résilience, durabilité et inclusion. À l'échelle mondiale, les pressions sur les ressources naturelles, la perte de la biodiversité et les effets du changement climatique exigent des réponses systémiques. Il nous faut fonder sur une gouvernance inclusive, une agriculture respectueuse de l'environnement, une justice sociale affirmée et des financements responsables. Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, le Maroc a engagé cette transition à travers la stratégie Génération Green 2020-2030 qui valorise l'agriculture durable et le capital humain. Nous avons mis en place un dispositif de gouvernance intersectorielle, renforcé la résilience hydrique par le dessalement et l'optimisation de l'irrigation et adopté une feuille de route nationale pour la transformation du système alimentaire. Nous avons également déployé des programmes de protection sociale pour garantir l'accès à une alimentation saine. Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, au-delà des stratégies nationales, nous sommes profondément convaincus que la transformation du système alimentaire ne peut être envisagée que dans une approche collaborative. À cet égard, le Maroc s'engage activement au sein des cadres régionaux et multilatéraux, notamment sur le continent africain, en faveur du partage d'expertise, de la co-construction des solutions adaptées et de la mobilisation conjointe des financements nécessaires. Conformément à la vision royale d'une coopération sud-sud interafricaine solidaire et agissante, le Maroc réaffirme à soutenir les agricultures africaines vers plus de résilience, de durabilité et d'inclusion à travers des initiatives royales telles que l'initiative de l'adaptation de l'agriculture africaine et l'initiative Soutenabilité, Stabilité et Sécurité en Afrique. Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, le Royaume du Maroc réaffirme son engagement global et résolu en faveur de la sécurité alimentaire en s'appuyant sur l'agenda 2030, sur l'agenda 2063 et sur l'ensemble des initiatives multilatérales qui façonnent un avenir plus juste, résilient et durable. Le Maroc appelle à cet égard à la création d'un fonds international dédié à la sécurité alimentaire en Afrique, levier essentiel pour renforcer la souveraineté alimentaire du continent et libérer son potentiel. Je vous remercie et j'espère que j'ai respecté le temps.
Merci, Morocco. Russian Federation, please. And I will ask, I'm very sorry again, but we will need to cut off minutes. Russian Federation, please.
Уважаемый председатель, уважаемые коллеги, саммит ООН по продовольственным системам 2021 года был призван не только держать данную тему в фокусе международного внимания, но и задать вектор трансформации глобальных продовольственных систем. Инаугурационное мероприятие позволило сформулировать долгосрочные задачи на будущее. Сегодня мы собрались подвести итоги, и нам есть что обсудить. За прошедшие 4 года удалось достичь определенных успехов как на страновом, так и международном уровнях. В практическом плане это относится к изучению и распространению передовых практик и успешного опыта реализации профильных национальных планов, укреплению роли римских организаций системы ООН в продвижении многостороннего сотрудничества в области укрепления глобальной продовольственной безопасности. Россия обладает развитым агропромышленным комплексом. Наращивая сельскохозяйственное производство и поставки, мы учитываем рекомендации саммита ООН по продовольственным системам 2021 года, в первую очередь касающиеся рационального использования природных ресурсов, снижения негативного влияния на климат, сокращения потерь и порчи продовольствия. В марте текущего года наша страна обновила основополагающий стратегический документ – доктрину продовольственной безопасности. В ней, среди прочих, мысль и цель по поддержанию стабильности на мировых рынках продовольствия в качестве ключевого фактора обеспечения глобальной продовольственной безопасности. Намерена последовательно добиваться этой цели за счет укрепления взаимодействия с конструктивно настроенными государствами и международными организациями. В качестве приоритета рассматриваем создание благоприятных условий для развития международных торгово-экономических, транспортно-логистических и финансовых связей на равноправной основе. Совершенствуя свою национальную продовольственную систему, мы не забываем об интересах и потребностях наших партнеров из стран мирового большинства. Напомню, что уже многие годы мы последовательно оказываем гуманитарную помощь этим странам по линии Всемирной продовольственной программы и ФАО ООН. Господин председатель, в условиях беспрецедентного
Sorry, but we still have to go through a couple more. We can record statements afterwards so that the complete statement can be recorded for each of those who are not able to take the microphone. I would now like to pass the word to Niger.
I will continue with your kind permission. В условиях беспрецедентных по масштабам и жесткости антироссийских санкций Запада в экономической, финансовой
I'm very, very sorry, but we can record full statements afterwards. I would like to pass the word very quickly to Niger, please.
Merci. Merci, Excellence. Je voudrais tout d'abord remercier le gouvernement éthiopien et les Nations Unies pour l'organisation de ce cadre d'échange privilégié pour parler de l'alimentaire. Excellence, plus de 800 millions de personnes aujourd'hui ont faim dans le monde. En Afrique subsaharienne, les crises alimentaires s'aggravent. Et les effets combinés des chocs climatiques et du dysfonctionnement du marché agricole aggravent la crise de la faim. Au Niger, le gouvernement s'est résolument engagé dans des réformes ambitieuses, inspirées de notre propre génie, notre compréhension profonde de notre terre et de nos peuples, pour transformer nos systèmes alimentaires. Nous investissons dans l'agriculture intelligente face à un climat capricieux, en puisant dans les méthodes agricoles, dans les méthodes agroécologiques ancestrales réactualisées par la technologie. Nous soutenons nos petits producteurs par la mise en œuvre de notre irrigation, manifestation de notre volonté de maîtriser notre destin alimentaire. Le Niger, en tant que bénéficiaire de l'étude pilote sur le financement du système alimentaire 3FS, démontre sa capacité à être un laboratoire d'innovation pouvant ainsi prouvant ainsi la pertinence des solutions endogènes proposées par notre pays. En 3 ans, notre stratégie de financement a permis d'augmenter de 9% les dépenses publiques consacrées au système alimentaire. Nos efforts aussi louables ne suffisent pas sans la solidarité
If you
internationale.
could please wrap up, Minister, I'm very sorry. Could you please wrap up?
Pardon?
If you could please wrap up, I'm very sorry.
Nos efforts aussi louables ne suffisent pas sans un financement plus innovant et prévisible basé sur une déco commerciale on dirait que ça marche pas. Le transfert de technologie et la paix et la stabilité. Aucun système alimentaire ne peut prospérer dans l'instabilité et la lutte contre le terrorisme au Sahel n'est pas seulement une question de sécurité, c'est une lutte de survie pour nos pays, pour nos pays et nos peuples. Mesdames et messieurs, les objectifs du développement durable resteront une chimère si nous tolérons encore que les enfants meurent de faim. Cette rencontre doit être un tournant pour une gouvernance mondiale plus juste, pour que la voix des pays affectés ne soit plus une simple note de bas de page, mais le cœur de décision, des investissements ciblés, alignés sur des priorités locales et un engagement renouvelé afin de vaincre la faim. Alors, avant de vaincre la faim,
Need to close as there's another session and we've been asked to leave the room in just a few moments. So again, if I would please ask you, if you can come over here, we can record the full statements and we will have those full statements on the record. And with that, I would like to just pass the word to Ms. Doreen Lynn Robinson, Deputy Director of Ecosystems Division at UNEP, to provide a very, very brief closing remark. And thank you so much to our panel, all of you for participating. Just a few closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I will be very quick. We've heard a lot of commitments today to do things differently. We heard to do things together. We've talked about insurance companies, farmers, communities, tech firms, researchers, and many more. We talked about innovation from blended finance to food processing, and we talked about applying systemic approaches and policy harmonization to achieve the complementarity that we're all committed to. But what I didn't hear a lot about was about preventative and restorative action in the first place to avoid the problems. I think that is our challenge. We talked a lot about inclusivity. I would push us to talk about just food systems. There is enough knowledge, there's enough evidence, there's enough science, there's enough food, and there is enough money to feed the world, but we're collectively choosing not to. How we operate our economies and support them are the solution. Maximo spoke of a truly systemic changes that we need to take, some hard choices we need to collectively make if we want to realize truly resilient, healthy, inclusive, and sustainable food systems. Thank you.
Thank you so much, all of you, for coming and for staying, for your participation, for your very inspiring words. And I leave you here to the next session, starting shortly.